Good morning. It's a Monday, June 30th, 2014, and this is Tech Talk Today, episode 17. My name is Chris. I've got a esteemed collection of internet trolls today on the Mumble Room. Oh, don't call them trolls for their face, though. They don't like it. No, actually, it's just my friends that have joined me today to talk about some of the news headlines, and it's a Monday, so you know what that means. Not a lot is broken yet. Now, some Mondays are actually very large news days. Most Mondays, though, it's sort of going through the weekend news, trying to see what people buried, and picking out the interesting stories. And the one that was generating a ton of discussion on Twitter was actually written by a friend of the network. She is a writer for Forbes. Her name is Kashmir Hill, and we've had her on one of our shows before. She wrote up a story about Facebook manipulating the emotions of nearly 700,000 of its users. Now, on its surface, that doesn't sound too terrible, but it sounds a little insidious, right? Let me give you a little bit of information, and then we'll talk about this. A recent study, this was just released, so that's how we found out about this, shows that Facebook was allowing these people to play with people's emotions. This was first noted by the news scientist. Facebook's data scientists manipulated the news feeds of 689,000 users, removing all of the positive posts or all of the negative posts to see how it affected their moods. This actually took place during a week in January of 2012. So this isn't a recent thing. I actually saw a lot of the comments online were like, no wonder I've been so depressed lately. No, this was from January 2012, sorry. So, for example, in January 2012, though, if you're only seeing photos of dead dogs or incredibly cute babies and nothing else in your feed, you might have been one of the people in this study. Research was led by Adam Kramer, found that emotions were contagious, too. When positive expressions were reduced, people produced fewer positive posts. And the more negative posts, the more negative expressions were posted. So they say they saw some correlation here. So it was between January 11th and the 18th. The problem, too, is it seems like the people are a little insensitive. Like, Facebook's like, well, this is part of our terms of service. We're allowed to do this. We have a rigorous review internally. And one of the scientists tweeted, well, probably nobody was driven to suicide. Hashtag joking, not joking. So there's a little bit of, like, insensitivity here, I would say. What do you guys think? Is this a problem? Is this dirty play by Facebook?
Well, I think it's playing with fire.
Yeah.
I think, if they did get somebody to the point of being, if the problem is if they play with just the wrong person, somebody who's prone to depression, and then they drive that person to suicide, then it's on them.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, they seem fairly nonchalant about that. Maybe they feel like they didn't introduce anything that was that dramatic. I don't know, but I kind of agree. Like, if you push somebody over, and because the thing is it's your friends, it's your family you're seeing in these feeds, so it seems like it could potentially hit a more sensitive, emotional nerve, if you will. Don't you think?
Absolutely. And, as somebody who I actually suffer from a few emotional disorders myself, I obviously wasn't hit by this, but if they put a lot of depressing stuff and gave me like a huge anxiety attack, I don't think I would be very happy knowing this.
Well, and it's dirty in a way too, because one of the things they were really studying was how does sentiment spread on social networking? Like, what if all of a sudden there was some sort of issue that people got really riled up about? How would that spread across social networks? How would people react? Would people's negative emotions sort of have an amplification effect? That's kind of the subtext of what they're playing with here. And the way this works, right, is this isn't reviewed by a scientific board. Like, a lot of times when you do quote unquote medical studies or research studies like this on a human population, it has to be reviewed by a scientific board. This particular type of experiment was reviewed internally by Facebook. So they don't really see, I mean, they say, because according to Facebook, they consider the fact that you agreed to the terms of service, this is a direct quote from their spokesperson, that because you agreed to the terms of service, you have expressed your consent to this research. And they say we often do research to improve our services and to make content people see on Facebook as relevant and engaging as possible. And that's the other side of this, right? Because Facebook now if you're not engaging enough with Facebook so that way they get the ad clicks they need, they could start maybe manipulating what they're showing you. Because they know if they show you lots of cute puppies and babies, you're more likely to contribute. And so they might start removing all of the emo stuff from your feed when you're not active enough.
Yeah, that's to me, there's that. There's that fact, and it's just the other thing is like, um, if they want to go down the deep end, that means they can control. If this actually proved true, that means they could perhaps start a revolution from Facebook. I don't know.
Well, or they could at least nudge public opinion in small, subtle ways. And it seems like one of those things, too, where when you're doing it at that level, people might not even be aware it's happening. Because you wouldn't know if all you're seeing is negative or positive stuff. You just assume that either everybody in your life's having a really good time right now or everybody in your life's having a real bad time right now.
Well, and Looks Familiar brings up a great point in the chat room, is that advertising is all about manipulating your emotions. But the thing is, when politics gets into play and starts manipulating your emotions like you were mentioning, then who knows? It just takes just the wrong person to get manipulated.
I hope. Here's what I hope. I hope
start manipulating.
We're all in right now on social networking because it's so new and shiny. And I'm hoping that maybe as the newness wears off over the next few years, maybe people won't get as wrapped up in social networking. Because I hear about these stories about people who got all depressed because they were bullied online or, people getting harassed online. And people seem to wrap so much of their self-value up in their online presence. And to me, it seems so, like trendy maybe? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't think it's going to go away. I'm not saying that, but I just think maybe people will pull back a little bit. Because look, you know how you avoid this whole Facebook manipulating your emotions? You just stop reading Facebook, right? Go read a book, go read another website, go outside, right? I mean, that's how you fix it. It's not you don't force Facebook to do something different. You don't try to expose something. You don't go after these people for doing a research study. You just stop using Facebook, right? And then that solves the problem.
Right.
Well, if I can add something here, I think what would drive people away from Facebook is not just the fact that they're manipulating your emotions. It's because most people probably won't even notice.
Right.
But what they will notice is that they're talking to people, to their family or friends, a few months after, and they mention something that they should have seen on Facebook and never did. And people use Facebook to keep in touch with their family and friends. So if that service doesn't provide the ability to do that because it removes stuff from their feed,
they'll go find it somewhere else.
They'll go somewhere else. So I think people at Facebook know that they have to be really careful.
Yeah.
But
they'll just push it as far as they can get away with it. That's what they're going to do now.
And it wouldn't be the first time if they would push it too far.
I would say this is an example of that right now. I think they went too far here. I think just because of the level of scrutiny they're under. Hey, why don't we talk about, let's go on the flip side. Let's talk about privacy. Let's talk about security. This is a topic I remain a bit of a skeptic on, but you've probably heard about the Black Phone from the Silent Circle group. It's actually beginning to ship now, and Ars Technica has the first review today. And they've taken an exclusive look at the Black Phone. It's kind of interesting, so I'll tell you a little bit about what we know so far. Here we go. The Black Phone is the first consumer-grade smartphone to be built explicitly for privacy, they say. Now, I'll tell you, I like the concept here. It pulls together a collection of services and software, and I think this is something that I didn't quite have a good understanding of until the Ars Technica review, is the Black Phone's privacy protection is as much about security on the phone as it is, like, it's one part phone security, one part cloud services. And that doesn't exactly appeal to me, but I'll give you guys the detail. It pulls together a collection of services and software intended to make covering your digital assets simple and straightforward. So this is coming out of SGP Technologies, a joint venture between the cryptographic services Silent Circle and the mobile hardware manufacturer GeeksPhone, who we're familiar with from the Firefox OS project. The Black Phone starts shipping to customers who pre-ordered it sometime later in this week. And it'll then be available for immediate purchase online, probably starting early next week. Here's what you get: a 2-year subscription to Silent Circle's secure voice and video calling and text messaging service, plus some friends and family type deal with that. You get 1 gig of Disconnect VPN service, plus Disconnect's anonymizing search as part built into your phone browser. You get 2 years of Spider Oak cloud storage with a limit of 5 gigabytes a month. It ships with a fork of Android called Private OS. Private OS's main innovation is its security center. It's an interface that allows the user to explicitly control just what bits of hardware functionality and data each application has access to. Much more granular than, say, like built-in Android controls. You can go in there and say, all right, well, these applications have access to the camera for this next 20 minutes, that kind of stuff, and then turn it off, and then turn it back on. There's another cool feature, too. It comes with some software you can get on your own Android device now, but it comes built in, where when you connect to a Wi-Fi network, the phone will analyze all of the cell towers around that Wi-Fi AP, and then it will notice if you ever connect to that Wi-Fi again and those cell towers are not present, and it will assume that that Wi-Fi access point is being spoofed, and it will prevent your phone from connecting. Of course, you can override. But it's a security feature, what they say allows it to fingerprint Wi-Fi networks to prevent your phone from joining a spoof network. So that means, I think what's beautiful about that, too, if you think about it, like with the free Comcast Wi-Fi that's coming around and things like that, that actually could be kind of a neat feature. So the black phone, let's talk about what the bottom line, here's the bottom line from Ars Technica. Here's what they say is good. They like that security center feature where you could control what has access to what resources, does this app have access to the 4G card, the camera, and I can control it for this long. They liked that Private OS has some of the features that stock Android OS probably should have. They think the bundled silent voice and silent text anonymizing services are good. They also like the Kismet Smart Wi-Fi Manager I mentioned. That's what it's called, the Kismet. You guys are probably familiar with Kismet. They've been around for a long time. Kismet Smart Wi-Fi Manager keeps the phone from connecting to the bad Wi-Fi networks. You could go get that for your Android device right now if you wanted to. And, of course, you get the Disconnect VPN service. Here's what they didn't like. The phone's performance, this thing is built for security. It's acceptable, but it's pretty mediocre. In fact, it's kind of bottom of the barrel right now for current shipping phones. They have benchmarks in the review if you guys want to read it. The silent phone calling ran into troubles, too, when switching between networks. They're not sure why. Like the cell handoff sometimes seemed to cause call issues and drop calls. And they were really bummed that because it's a custom OS, that means no Google Play certifications, which means no Google Play libraries or Google Play services or Google ecosystem apps. And it's kind of a hack to get the apps sideloaded, but you can do it. So first units will start shipping for $629. They're going out to European LTE customers first, and then U.S. units will follow. In both cases, pre-order production runs come first. So if you pre-order, you're going to get yours first, and then they'll ship out the ones that haven't shipped. So, Mumble Room, what say you? Are you interested in a black phone?
Not that one particularly, only because you have to use their services, essentially. That's just the only downside.
Yeah, I was going to say, I heard a lot of buzzwords, but not a lot of important stuff. Like, is their software stack entirely open source? Is their server-side software stack open source? And this is the kind of stuff, but as far as security goes, I'm interested in, because otherwise, I just have to take their word for it that it is actually secure.
Yeah, that's a great point. And okay, let me ask you guys, this is something I've wondered about, because I don't have a sense of how big of a problem this actually is. But we've covered a few stories now on TechSnap where a phone has been remotely controlled by compromising the baseband software stack. And I've heard some people say, like, oh, there's an entirely separate operating system running in your phone, and it has a separate set of processors. And I believe that to be technically true somewhat, but my instinct tells me it's probably limited in its actual capabilities and depends probably on vulnerabilities in the host operating system. But that being said, what we have covered in TechSnap has shown that baseband stuff is often quite vulnerable. And so I wonder if you're genuinely paranoid, and whatever reason you might have, if this is actually ever an actual solution. Like if you are, say, a dissident in the Middle East, like I couldn't see, it seems like a government would have the ability to compromise a device like this. But perhaps if you're just trying to protect yourself from, data hackers or I don't know what, maybe then it's okay. I guess what I don't understand is it doesn't seem like a full solution because of that baseband problem, and I'm not 100% sure if I'm correct on that baseband problem. It's something that I've been trying to do more research on, but I get so many mixed answers. We have seen in NSA slide releases, yeah, there it is, to take a shot, NSA slide releases that they are able to compromise basebands. And we've seen at Black Hat conferences where they do that and they take over the device, but like I said, most times it depends on a vulnerability in the OS. So I don't know, it's interesting. Hey, while we're talking about vulnerabilities in the OS, one more Android story. to top us off, and then we're going to move on to the Aaron Swartz movie that I got a chance to watch a little bit last night. So this is really frustrating for me because this is something that I kind of have harped on for a while. This is an article coming from Ars Technica written by Dane Gooden. There's a serious Android crypto flaw that leaves a lot of devices vulnerable. And essentially, here's the way this works, is there's a vulnerability that resides in the Android key store, which is a highly sensitive region of the operating system dedicated to storing, you guessed it, cryptographic keys and similar credentials. So like if you have a VPN app and it has a key to complete that VPN connection, this is where it stores that. Or if you have the Bank of America app or the Mint app, for example. By exploiting a bug in this area, this is according to IBM security researchers, attackers can execute malicious code that leaks keys used by banking and other sensitive apps like the VPN apps I mentioned, or like a PIN to unlock an app if you have a PIN. So this is an advisory released by Google. They have patched it. It was a stack-based buffer overflow, and it only affects version 4.4 of KitKat of Android. So this is one of these things where if you're on a device that's shipped with Android and it doesn't get updates, this is not going to be fixed for you. However, usually if you're on a device that's shipping 4.4, you're likely to get updates. But it's this very odd, strange gray area where it just depends on which phone you bought, from which OEM, and which carrier they're on if you're ever going to get the security update. So you have to keep that in mind. And I don't know if what we need out there is like a website that keeps track of what Android devices are getting updates. There are, of course, there is some good news. There is some technical hurdles that attackers will have to overcome to exploit this flaw in KitKat, because KitKat does have address space randomization. It just isn't necessarily turned on. So you have to double check that. That should make it harder, but yet not impossible. So there you go. So a little Android security update for you too. All right, so last night I stayed up later than I should have, you guys. I was watching the internet's own boy, The Story of Aaron Swartz. And we'll have a link where you can download it in the show notes right from archive.org. And if you enjoy it like I did, I would recommend kicking a little to the EFF or something like that. So I want to talk about this really quick because I think it's the year anniversary since Aaron Swartz committed suicide. If you're not familiar with Aaron Swartz, he was instrumental in creating the RSS spec. He co-founded Reddit. He was a child prodigy. And he was incredibly smart. And as he got older and became more informed, he became incredibly frustrated with the impotency of the technology sector to engage politically to fix things, to take things like making public data and making it generally available to the public, or do things that just are fixing a broken system. And as he watched it, he became more and more frustrated and more angry. And so he began to transition from really all the really technical stuff to merging the political things he was passionate about with technology. And it's a really fascinating documentary. The first half of it's pretty uplifting, actually, because it's just inspiring to see like this 12-year-old kid winning awards, and then the 17-year-old kid drafting the RSS spec. I mean, it's damn inspiring. So the first half of the movie is pretty uplifting. The second half of the movie, and it's about an hour and 45 minutes. That's where you start to get into some of the stuff that is just such a downer, especially when it gets to the fact that the prosecutor who went after Swartz in a previous hacking case had another kid who committed suicide. Swartz wasn't the first kid who committed suicide while being pursued by this Justice Department for really lame hacking charges. It's a bit of a bummer, but I think it's worth all of us watching. Because it raises some important issues. It reminds us of what's going on, but it also gives us a good history and insight into some of the earlier days of the web. Aaron grew up at a really interesting time where the internet was really being formed and was able to contribute even at a young age. And it really fundamentally shows you how the internet can be democratizing, not just for people like me who want to do a broadcast, who would have had to go through radio station managers and there's no way I would be on the air, right? I mean, this wouldn't happen. I would have to go to broadcast school, and I would have to convince people, and I have to work late night shifts for 10, 20 years first. It just never would happen, right? So for people like me, where I can contribute in my way, and people like Aaron Swartz who are able to contribute in his way, even when he was 12 and 17, and it's fundamentally democratizing for everyone around the world. And so it's interesting to watch the history of it for something that we all consider to be pretty important. And I'll leave a link to that in the show notes if you guys want to watch it. I recommend it. And it's got great interviews, too. So, I mean, they go to the people, like Tim Berners-Lee and others that were there at the beginning. Hey, before we get out of here, I just want to remind you that you can support the Jupiter Broadcasting Network and the Tech Talk Today show by going over to patreon.com/today. I have a short list of things I want to accomplish, but we need some crowdfunding to do it. We don't want to go ad crazy. We want to try to get funded from the folks who enjoy our content, who consume our content. Makes you guys the boss, right? If I got to have a boss, if I got to work for somebody, it might as well be the audience I'm working for anyways already. It aligns my priorities with your priorities, and it's a great way to help grow our network without having to go too commercial. Keeps it cool, keeps it indie, and we're able to keep a good blend of multiple revenue sources. That way, if one particular thing goes kaput, we don't go away, and that's always really important for long-term sustainability. I'll tell you the short list, though. IT contractor. That's on my short list. Even though I'm an IT guy, turns out I'm doing like 13 shows a week now. So I don't really have a lot of time to troubleshoot technology problems. So and I'm looking for an IT contractor in our area who's also got broadcast experience. That's somebody I want to hire. I want to build a to-go bag, like a get out of here bag, like not like the prepper kind of bag, no, but like the remote broadcaster kind of bag / oh my gosh, horrible hardware failure kind of bag. Let me just pull that out. But that's even just something like that. The lights, the camera, a little mini mixer, maybe a machine to do the remote broadcasting and something to do visuals and connect back up. You know, a little set of gear, right, with cords and all of that stuff, everything you need to actually do an on-location shoot. Well, that's about $2,000 just right there, just to build something like that. But that's not a wasted investment. That's something that we can then go out there and bring on-location reporting of events that are going on or all kinds of things into our shows, right? But it also means we have a go-to backup right there, ready to go. If something dies, it doesn't mean we almost go out for a week. It means I just go get the backup option that maybe isn't perfect for our workload, but at least gets us on the air because we got this to-go bag. That's just an example of two things I want to try to do for the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, but those are all, expensive cost centers, and that's like things I'd like to do this month. So if you go over to patreon.com/today, help fund the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, keep Tech Talk Today on the network, and get a little exclusive treats from time to time when I post them there for the Patreons. That's and then we have pledge levels there too, including the suggested pledge levels have one for a swag club. There is 27 of 48 slots left in the swag club. And that we're going to try to do really cool stuff for the tech. Well, we're going to do cool stuff for everybody. But if you're in the Tech Talk Today one, you know the swag you're getting is going to be extra cool because a lot of it's going to have my face on it, right? Have you seen that hair? I'm just saying. Thank you for going to patreon.com/today and supporting the Tech Talk Today program. You guys are awesome. Mumble Room, last chance to chime in on any stories before we run. I don't want to get off the air and have somebody say, hey, I wanted to mention. So I just want to give you...
Yeah, I was going to mention about the black phone.
Yeah.
The really cool thing about that is the wireless thing. I think that's the only thing that I would like to see changed specifically that is vulnerable on my device.
Yeah, I think it's called the Kismet Wireless Manager. Here, I'm looking it up right now for you. You can go get that right now for your Android device, though.
Oh, that's perfect then.
Yeah.
Right now, if you connect to anything, it'll automatically try to reconnect. Even if I just had the ability to set don't automatically connect to this one for like the public Wi-Fi stuff, then you would be a lot less likely to be man-in-the-middle through like a Pineapple type device.
Yeah. See, I'm looking it up. See, it's the Kismet Smart Wi-Fi Manager, and yeah, there we go. So I will put a link to this in the show notes too. And so that way, folks, if you just want to put it on your Android device right now, it's in the Smarter Wi-Fi Manager. There's a couple of them, so I'll make sure I grab the right one. So that way, Kismet has a couple. So I'll look at these after the show, and I'll make sure we put a link to the right one in the show notes. So if you guys want to,
and it doesn't mail in the middle of you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because if you get the wrong one, that might just sort of ruin the whole point. All right, very good.
And one last thing, if you do want finer control, like granularity over the permissions that apps have. X-Privacy is a great module for rooted phones. It can do all of that, and you can limit GPS to the app and actually feed it random data that you can set your GPS position that you want that app to see.
Is that in the Play Store too?
I think it's part of the Exposed module or the Exposed framework. And the module itself is called X-Privacy. I'll get you links.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to check that out because I've actually just recently rooted the Nexus, so I could take advantage of that. I would like to do that. So it sounds like
somebody that you're texting somebody from Istanbul, Turkey.
Yeah. So it sounds like if you go out, but seriously, right? If you go out and get Silent Circle, you get the Kismet Wi-Fi Manager, and you get X Privacy, you've essentially created your own black phone. I mean, you don't know, like, if there's carrier bloat on there or OEM bloat on there, like some of those have like that carrier IQ stuff that does give them access to your phone still. But if it's a stock ROM, I mean, you're probably pretty close to a black phone. I mean, I guess probably not, because there's Play services.
Even CyanogenMod might be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's just, you can get there's different degrees you could get. So that's interesting. That's something I might play with in the future and report back here on the show and tell you guys how it goes, because might as well. All right. Well, thanks a bunch, Mumble Room. Before we run, I wanted to play a classic commercial. And last week during Google I.O., that was last week, right? It feels like it was 2 weeks ago. Last week during Google I.O., they showed the Chromecast's new feature where it'll project your pictures up on the TV while it's idle. Sounded like a pretty revolutionary feature for 1956. Go, Kodak!
Here's how you can relive a good time over and over again. See it, big as life in full color slides. The newest, smartest way to take color slides is with a stylish Kodak Signet 40 camera. You'll wear it proudly everywhere you go. Just aim, focus, snap. It's as easy as that. Exciting action shots, eye-catching close-ups, beautiful scenes, indoors or out, day or night. You can take them all in rich, beautiful color. The Kodak Signet 40 is the smartest color slide camera you can buy, yet it costs only $74 or as little as $750 down. Other fine Kodak color slide cameras range in price from $31.50 to $175. Ask your dealer about easy terms, and remember, when your camera is made by Kodak, you know it's good.